Hello and welcome to Women of the Middle East podcast. This podcast relates the realities of Arab women and their rich and diverse experiences. It aims to present the multiplicity of women's voices, and it wishes to break cultural stereotypes about women of the Middle East, as well as educate and empower the younger generation of Middle Eastern women who were stripped of their historical reference and weren't necessarily raised to believe in their agency and power to create their own destiny. I'm Amal Malki. I'm a feminist, scholar, and educator. I'm also the author of Arab Women in Arab News, Old Stereotypes and New Media. I created this podcast to be an extension and an update of the book and its main topics. Hello, and welcome to Women of the Middle East podcast. I record this episode, which is episode 11, in a small cottage above Dubrovnik in Croatia, hoping that you're all fine and safe. As the world takes its breaths between different variants of COVID-19, I wanted to take a short break before we start a new academic year, not knowing what the new normal will be. In this episode, I continue bringing to you some of the talks from Empower Now online forum that took place online in March 2021 that presented a collage of women leaders, experts, and business owners who have shared their experiences and expertise. As I told you last time, I was one of the speakers, and today we have a second intervention by Ghida Anani, who is from Lebanon. She's an assistant professor in the Faculty of Public Health at the Lebanese University. As an expert in gender-based violence and child protection, Hanane has published a number of studies, articles, training kits, and community educational materials on gender-based violence and child sexual abuse in Lebanon and the MENA region. In June 2011, she founded and continues to manage ABAD, or ABAD, ABAAD, Resource Center for Gender Equality, which was awarded the Womanity Award. In 2014, Anani received the Women Leadership Achievement Award by the World Women Leadership Congress. She has led a number of public opinion campaigns, notably the latest, which is hashtag Undress 522, Undress 522, which resulted in a historical parliamentary vote repealing Article 522 from the Lebanese Penal Code. Now, Article 522 of the Penal Code is a law in Lebanon which exonerated the rapist if he marries his victims. So basically, if a rapist marries his victim, he gets away with it.
To hear more about your activities and know more about Abad and this very, very interesting topic. So the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hanan, and thank you actually for having me as part of this amazing, innovative, I would say, social opportunity to meet and exchange lots of learning with many really inspiring entrepreneurs and activists in the field.
DAD stands for dimension, and it's reflective of the model of intervention that we're adopting in our operation, in our work. So when I started Abad in 2011, it was in the philosophy of establishing a modern civil society organization that adopt in practice the multi-sectoral and multi-systemic approach with mainstream gender-sensitive, human rights-based approach and also people-led approach. So in a sense, we believe that as each word has
region, both men and
Yeah.
women. And so going back to the topic of gender-based violence, which I think it's really important topic to shed the light on, and bringing it more to context of today. And we know that the crisis we've been with and still are battling with has definitely shown more, exposed more gender-based violence, domestic violence. And a lot of reports have shown the increase, and not just in Middle Eastern and Arab country, but even in Western countries. So if I may ask, what do you think is the reality today about this context of COVID-19 crisis, the domestic violence increase?
Yeah. So unfortunately, usually in each emergency, being like a natural disaster or man-made emergency like armed conflict or even health like pandemic, always women and girls are the most vulnerable in the equation, and they have a part of it. And of course, COVID-19 was no exception. Because of the dominating patriarchy that is governing like most of countries, but especially also in the MENA region and in Lebanon specifically. So we have this already mentality and we have the social norms of patriarchy that are really governing the relationship dynamic, and that is also deeply rooted in our policies and hence our legislations and our daily practice of what is okay, what is not okay. So during the pandemic, already domestic violence was a kind of predominant in unfortunately in Lebanon. We don't have representative data in general. We don't know the size of the population anyway, for multiple socio-political reasons. So but what was evident that already it was affecting the life of women and girls through the reported numbers to NGOs, to the police, or in the media. Then with the start of the lockdown, of course, that multiplied by double and triple. Even during a period of time, it was an increase of 100% of the reported cases to the police, to the security forces, as well as to NGOs. Doing the triangulation of data of the numbers, it was really alarming that those that had predisposition of using violence in the relationship, the pandemic, and being locked in with all the patriarchy mentality, the shift in the gender role, who was supposed, and then the increase of pressure that was on women as well, on men, being the bread earner, being the one bringing the food to the table, being the one taking decisions. So this kind of conflict, spousal conflict that was already there, couples who were not solving regularly in non-violent way their differences or their fights or their issues, immediately with the lockdown, that was an explosive factor that made the violence like really being the way of communicating or the way of just bringing the quote-unquote the stress out there on the wife or on the kids, as well as some of the violence. So the reality was like really alarming on the level of magnitude of the problem, but also one of the major problem was accessibility to the service. So, and the women really knowing that down, there is no interruption of life-saving services being provided. And that is, my dear, just because still the mentality is as if gender-based violence is not a public health issue. And dissociating that from the health response was a key problem, despite being a major protection concern. But when it comes to emergency response plan, it should have been integrated and mainstreamed as part of the health response, as in the different countries. But because of like we're not still defining, considering, and treating gender-based violence as a major public health problem, in addition to being a violation of human rights, where the real gap happened in sense of women not knowing about availability of the services, governmental measures were not taking into account how women can still access the service with the interruption of and what was actually also combined with the banking problems. So access to cash to be able to go around was challenging. We don't have public transportation system. There are no way for the women to go out there, have some money in hand, have a safe mean of transportation to be able to go and get support from counseling units. So that in addition to lastly, absence of a unified, free of charge complaint system of having a national hotline. In all countries, we always have a kind of 3-digit toll free of charge number where any woman can call asking support in life-threatening situation. In Lebanon, hotlines are managed by civil society. Mainly it's a mobile number. We know how much is expensive the telecom. So having a way for the women to communicate, it was one of the key challenges as well. Because of inability of that mechanism. So the last resort was using all social media platforms. So what we witnessed is that the shift of women to use of inbox and Instagram and on Facebook, using WhatsApp, even sending emails as a modality to safely communicate, and also without an additional cost, with all the crisis that was really intersectional and exacerbated, in a sense.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. That answers my question that was anticipated about the challenges and the gaps, unless you want to have more that are in the second more specifically, since you're active there. And I'm curious to know about some innovative ways or innovative interventions that Abad has come up or done to address this really major problem.
Yeah, so basically just maybe lastly to add on the gaps was as well non-readiness of ministries that are supposedly under the principle of due diligence, which is state responsibility to respond and support survivors, basically. There is like a kind of missing prioritization or missing response plan, especially in sectoral, meaning on the level of the Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Social Affairs, Ministry of Public, as well as the women machinery, basically. So despite the fact that Lebanon today has a national GBV SOP, which is Standard Operational Procedures, endorsed, led by the Ministry of Social Affairs, but yet it was not operationalized at the time of the pandemic. It was a newly released system that requires some testing, pilot testing, and operationalization. And when the lockdown started, it's a kind of vacuum on the level of different sectors that are usually the frontliners. So if I today have faced any form of violence, so either I would go to the police, or I would go to an emergency room in a hospital, or I would go to a social community center, counseling unit, or I would go to see a lawyer, a judge. So this is usually the defense mechanism. These are frontliners supposedly in time of emergency to have to shift to a preparedness of shadow them like a kind of first aid. So it's a kind of contingency as if you're in a time of war. So you shift to that mode. So the key gaps as well was absence of preparedness on who to do what and how at a time of quote unquote exceptions, such as the pandemic. So what we try to do is to think out of the box, most importantly, because we shifted to mobile service delivery. So for Abad, we never stopped one day of providing the services, actually, the life-saving services in our shelters. We were still accommodating women. We found an alternative of having midway apartments where the women can go in quarantine. So without really feeling that we would say no to any woman, as well as to enhance the accessibility and promote the availability of the service. So we did a quick campaign, which was called Lockdown, Not Lock Up. We asked people from where they are on their balcony to have a white blanket, actually, and write down the hotline number of Abad, or maybe to the police or any other organizations they wish to do, with a solidarity message. So women behind locked doors would know in their neighborhood, like it's an act of solidarity, but as well promoting the number as well as breaking the isolation the women are living in, and let them know that it's there. And the municipality joined in that effort and having like white banners in different areas. And we were able to have a digital campaign as well, promoting through camouflage messages with the support of influencers on Instagram, also like videos um, repeating and overly like really promoting, especially the safe line number of Abad 8178 in a very innovative way. So that was one example of what we tried to do, and that helped in having more than 150 calls in 1 week from women who are actually facing that challenge and not able to were not like actually seeking support or speaking to anyone to ask for advice of what is possible in their situation.
Amazing. Wow, that's really, I think, I always think that crisis sometimes sparks innovation, and sense of urgency does spark innovation. I wanted to, for being there, for creating something like Abad that is creating these safe ways, safe spaces for women, and for like on such an important topic that is really alarming, that is impacting of women, and it's still hidden. Thank you so much, Ghida Anani, for your intervention. It was a great pleasure having you with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
In the next episode, I will share with you the third intervention in the social impact session, from which I have already shared Ghida's and my talk. The third intervention will be by Rita Rhayem, who will be talking about women at the front lines leading the battle against COVID-19. Until then, I'm gathering the questions you're asking and will dedicate an episode to answer. So send me any questions you have about the scholarship on women in the Middle East, Arab or Muslim women, or even questions you have for me. Also, for those who have asked for a live episode, I will certainly think about it and will let you know soon. Don't forget, you can always email me or contact me via social media. It will be shared with you. Until then, take care and stay safe.